Nintendo defenders have been working overtime recently to justify some of Nintendo's decisions, and I'm going to go over some of these insane takes and examples of people who are just blindly loyal to Nintendo. Before I do though, I'm closing in on 80,000 subs, so be sure to subscribe for non-stop Nintendo content. So recently Nintendo announced the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch 2 edition for $65, and I made a video talking about this and why I think it's not justified for Nintendo to charge more than the launch price for games that are years old now. This is a game that released on the Switch in 2020 at $60, and now if you want the same game with minor upgrades, you're paying $5 more. This is just not the norm within the gaming industry, simply because most games drop in price. Nintendo is one of the few companies that will just not lower game prices. Mario Odyssey, which came out 8 years ago, still costs $60. Breath of the Wild still costs $60. Hell, even ARMS costs $60 if you buy it directly from Nintendo. And now games with minor upgrades through Switch 2 editions cost up to $80. Like Kirby and Mario Party Jamboree both cost $80 when their original games came out a couple years ago for $60. You would think this would get universal backlash, but no. There's people who have a parasocial relationship with Nintendo who will support anything they do. They see Nintendo as their friend rather than a for-profit corporation, and that really is a problem. They grew up playing Nintendo games and idolizing Reggie Fils-Aimé, Satoru Iwata, Shigeru Miyamoto, and feel like they were friends and don't want to criticize them. They don't realize Nintendo is a massive company that's goal is to simply make money. Their goal is not to be your friend, and these people will just do mental gymnastics to justify Nintendo's decisions. I've seen people say inflation is the reason why these games are $80, since when they originally released for $60, that's like the equivalent of $80 today, and in my opinion, that's an extremely flawed take. The first reason is that these are just old games now. Games lose value over time, like less people buy it over time and more people resell it for cheaper, so prices typically go down. Second, inflation isn't black and white. Just because something that was $60 in 2017 is the equivalent of $80 today doesn't mean it's worth the same. Wages have not kept up with inflation, so it's not like that $60 in 2017 is that much cheaper compared to someone spending $60 today. In addition to the inflation arguments, I've seen people say the upgrade is just $5 on the base game and then snarkily say, "Do you not have $5? And that's just completely missing the point. If you go to a restaurant and ask for a water and they respond saying it'll be $20, you'd probably say that's a ridiculous price. That doesn't mean you don't have $20. It just means they're charging more for that item than you feel is reasonable. It's not that the $5 for the upgrade isn't reasonable. It's that charging $65 as a new game for what will be a 6-year-old game is just way too much. Remember when Nintendo had Nintendo Selects? There were great games that sold around $20, and usually it was a couple years after release. Imagine if Nintendo did the same thing for certain Switch games and had a Switch 2 edition based on that price. Like imagine getting New Horizons for the base price of $40 or the Switch 2 edition for $45. I feel like that would be a lot more reasonable. Anyway, this video isn't supposed to just be about Nintendo's pricing decisions, but rather how people will be so quick to defend them. If you go to any YouTube comment section, you'll see shills who would praise a $100 price tag for the original Super Mario Bros. With slightly better visuals, and they will attack anyone who dares question Nintendo and call them a hater. Like listen, I'm a big Nintendo fan, I grew up playing Nintendo games, I've covered Nintendo games on this channel for 10 years, so like I'm obviously not a hater. I don't believe Nintendo is immune from criticism just because I like their games, and you should feel the same way. Nintendo is not your friend. They're a company who makes some very questionable decisions and deserve backlash for some of it. You don't need to get on your high horse and defend Nintendo like you're Batman. And here's where it gets worse, because this is not new. Every time Nintendo does something anti-consumer, we see the pattern of excuses. When Mario 3D All-Stars launched as a limited time release, people said, oh, it's just Nintendo being creative. It's just Nintendo being creative with scarcity. No, it was artificial scarcity to boost sales, and also they really didn't change much in those games and still charged $60 for it. When they shut down the 3DS and Wii U eShops, people said they're just focusing on the future. And sure, except that decision wiped out hundreds of digital-only games and made video game preservation even harder. When Tears of the Kingdom launched for $70 and then for $80 on Switch 2, people said, well, it's a massive game. Yeah, so is Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, Horizon Forbidden West, games that launched at $70, but have since gone down in price from 30 to 50%. And the thing is, it's not just about money, it's about what this behavior encourages. Every time fans defend these decisions, it sends a signal, we'll pay more for less, and that tells Nintendo and every other company watching that they can keep pushing the line further. That's how we end up with things like limited time releases, bare bones remasters, and online expansions that cost more than entire games. I'm not saying Nintendo shouldn't make money, like I get it, they're a business, but when fans defend everything, then there's just no accountability. Like the only way to push back against something is to simply not buy it, or at least speak out against it. Like, look at the Wii U. Like, Nintendo did nothing wrong with the Wii U from an ethical standpoint, in my opinion. People just didn't feel that it was worth buying, and then prices went down, the console price went down, games started to become cheaper, and the same thing with the 3DS. The 3DS launched at, I think, $250, and people just were not buying it for that price, so Nintendo lowered it. And I think the 3DS example is better here because that's about money, when the Wii U is just not about money. It's about people being confused by it and people not wanting to buy it just for lack of support. And also around the time the 3DS launched and the few years after, like, that's when Nintendo Selects were still around. Like, there were Nintendo Selects games on the 3DS. Like, these were ways to get games, very high quality games for the most part, for very good prices. And now that seems to completely have gone away, and in fact, Nintendo isn't lowering prices, they're raising prices on games that are years old. And I'm not talking about people who already have, like, let's say Animal Crossing New Horizons, because the $5 upgrade, it's not a big deal if you already have the game. But if you don't and you want to get what the Switch 2 copy has to offer, your best bet is simply buying New Horizons, like, on eBay, on the original Switch, and then just buying the $5 upgrade. It just makes no sense to spend $65 on this game. And for a lot of people, they already know about this. Like, a lot of people aren't paying full price for games, but especially for parents and young kids who don't know, like, I feel like that's taking advantage. And before you try to bring up, like, Xbox or PlayStation, that's not what I'm talking about in this video. I'm talking about Nintendo here. Like, why is it that Nintendo of the past would have these great deals on games, lower game prices over time, but now they still cost full price and even beyond that? Like, it's not like these are full, like, remakes or something. It's not like there's just a ton of new content. Like, yeah, some of them have some cool new features, but does that really justify having 10 or 20 more dollars added onto that price of a game you could probably find for like $30 now? And even beyond money, because I know that's what people are talking about the most now, look at discourse around Mario Kart World. Like, obviously the $80 price tag, I've already talked about that. I don't think it's justified, and people have been debating that. But even the quality of the game itself, like, a lot of people are really unhappy with this game. Like, it seems like the consensus from a lot of people is that it's a good game, but it just leaves a lot to be desired. And I've talked about this in a lot of videos, and there's always people who act like I'm just hating on the game for no reason, that I either haven't played it or I'm just joining in on the hate to get views. And I think that's just an extremely flawed view. Like, obviously there's always going to be people who will hate on something for views. Like, I'm not going to act like no one ever does that, but you can have, like, the most well put together argument and people will still say that. Like, I've been very clear about what my issues are. Like, I think that the open world is very barren. There's very few challenges. Like, there's the P-switches, there's the random costumes you can find. I've had issues with it being very luck-based. I know Mario Kart has never been about pure skill. Like, there's always been a lot of luck, but it seems to be a lot more extreme here. I have issues with the lack of content given the price. When Nintendo announced the game for $80, I know $50 with the Switch 2 bundle, but the game itself is $80. Like, I'm expecting an $80 game, and I just don't think Mario Kart World was an $80 game. I think it was very lacking in content. I think the actual gameplay was fun, but it's still very flawed. And even when bringing up those points, there's people who will just say, like, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm not saying my actual opinion. I'm just saying what's popular to say. Are people really just that blinded by Nintendo? Like, they can't even imagine people having legitimate criticisms with their games? They think that anyone who says something is just trying to get views or is just hating for no reason or hating because they don't like Nintendo. Like, is that really where we're at right now? I think acting this way towards any person or any company is just very flawed, because if you really do love something, like, I love Nintendo games, I'm a big fan of Nintendo, like I've mentioned. I wouldn't have been active on this channel for a decade now if I didn't obviously care about Nintendo. Like, I love a lot of their franchises, I like their consoles. I just want them to make the best games they can make and charge reasonable prices for it and not take advantage. Like, I don't think it's controversial to say that's a more reasonable opinion to hold than just saying Nintendo can do no wrong. And yeah, there's people on the other side who think Nintendo only does things wrong and will just bash Nintendo no matter what they do. But I've been seeing a lot more prevalence of people like the Nintendo parasocial relationship people, which I talked about in another video. Like, this has just become a very heated topic, which really should not be a heated topic. Like, I thought there would be more, like, agreement here among fans, but maybe it's just a loud minority, or maybe it truly is how a lot of Nintendo fans are, where they just can't accept anyone criticizing the company. But anyway, I just wanted to rant about this because it's something I've been seeing a lot, especially since I've been posting about the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch 2 edition, and I've just been seeing so many people completely miss the point with what I'm saying with what other people are saying, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Like, I want to know, what do you think about what I'm saying? Like, what decisions Nintendo has made do you think are bad decisions, or they're taking advantage because of the price? And be sure to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed. This has been Domain with Game Domain. Thank you for watching.